Hi, everyone, and welcome to Tap into Your Creativity. I am so excited for today. I I cannot believe that it has been a year. Today is 1 year that we are celebrating Tap into Your Creativity, celebrating all of you guys, my army of artists that has helped me to get to this point. A year ago, tomorrow, we were right here, and this whole idea of tap into your creativity came into being, and I'm overwhelmed and so happy to be here today. And my very first artist was Jane Kenyon. And Jane will be joining us hopefully really soon. I don't see her yet, but she trusted me and she really gave me a chance to start this. And here she is, and I'm gonna just bring her in about her and how this project started a year ago. I just cannot even believe that this is a year. Hi, Jane.
Hi, Sandra.
Welcome to Tap into Your Creativity again.
Here we are again. Yeah.
I know. Can you believe it? I mean,
No.
I seriously, tomorrow will be 1 year
Yeah.
that you gave me a chance to start this project because you believed in me and you trusted me, and you knew that if I made a mistake, it was all coming from from the goodness of my heart. And I was so nervous a year ago. I can't even tell you. It was
Oh, yeah.
crazy.
Me too.
And
And I'm the one that screwed it all up. So I had no idea what I was doing. Yeah.
no, I don't think so. I think that it was such a, I think it has been a labor of love. I think
No.
it started as an idea and now it has become this incredible helpful thing, platform for artists, for community building, for helping community at large. And I couldn't have done it without you guys, and the fact that you trusted me to do the first interview, no matter if I screwed it up or not. I felt like you helped me just to feel safe as well.
Good. Thank you.
And so I am so excited that you're joining me today, Jane, to celebrate 1 year of Tap into Your Creativity. I'm elated. So thank
Well,
you.
I'm excited to be back. And I have to say, Sandra, what you've done over the last year is just so remarkable. Um, the energy that you've put into this and the dedication and the generosity that you've put into this is really incredible and has meant a lot to a lot of people, a lot of artists,
Yes.
and a lot of people who are benefiting from your charities. So I really
Yes,
wanted to
exactly. We're
congratulate
almost hitting the 25,000 mark. So, I mean, it's 250,000 meals for people in need. And it's just been such an incredible journey, and to get to know artists from all over the world
you. Yeah.
and inspire people at home and keep creating and thinking outside of the box on how to
Yeah.
stay sane with all the noise that we've had, last year. How has it been for you, Jane, this year? Tell me a little bit about you and where you are at the moment.
Um, well, it's been different, but not so different. I think for a lot of artists, we work alone anyway, and we spend a lot of time on our own. And I'm a pretty introverted person anyway, so for me, it hasn't been a huge difference. I think the thing that um, has struck me most, and I think a lot of people have learned this over the last year, is how important community is. And I have been able to keep in close contact with a small group of artists through Stephen Imany, through his online classes for over a year now. And it's kind of, I keep saying it saved my life. And in some ways, I feel like it did. It kept me going in the studio. It kept me inspired. It kept me connected. And I think that's one of the things that what you do is also doing. I think it's keeping artists connected to their community, because artists can feel isolated anyway, at the best of times.
Yes.
And when something like this happens, we are cut off in ways that we didn't expect. So for me, it's been okay. It's been, up and down like everybody, but I've been able to continue on in the studio. And it's been a year where I felt once I got past the first trauma of it that everybody experienced and the shock of it, I was able to go into the studio and free myself up for experimentation, which I do a lot of anyway, but I tried a bunch of new things this year that I haven't tried before, and some successful, some not so successful. So it's given us big blocks of time as artists to dive into something that we maybe always wanted to try but haven't.
Yeah, I think that you touched on something very important. I think community is a big, it can be daunting, but it could be as small or big as you wanted it to be. And I feel that we as artists, really is like the most important thing for us is to have that safety net where you can speak the same language and people will understand what you're saying and what you're not and how you're expressing yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think I wanted to create this space where everyone felt very safe and where we can really just share and teach others what we've learned through our journey to get to where we are today, and how important it is to be a part of a community and not to be isolated. In so many ways, it helps mentally, obviously, but it also really helps you develop your career and push yourself to things that maybe you didn't want to do before, and maybe getting out of that comfort zone. It really, really will help you elevate your game.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think the word safe is really important, because I think that when we're going through things like this, and just even everyday life, we often have feelings and worries, maybe related to our occupation or our profession, or maybe related just to our inner life. And we always think that we're the only one that feels that way.
Yes.
And being in a community, even a very small community, that, as you say, speaks your language and is interested in the same things as you are. And once you get safe enough to be able to discuss those other feelings, you find that we all have them.
Yes, for sure.
Not have them this minute, but we had them last week, or we had them last month.
Yes, yes. And someone just asked, and we'll get into this, is Jane still doing any textile work? Have been loving seeing her abstract.
Well, interestingly enough, one of the things that occurred during the pandemic was that I dove back into textiles again. I have been away from textiles since almost 10 years now, that I've been really away from it. And the last year I've tried some new things. It's not like the textile work I was doing before, but I was searching really hard for a way to make painting and stitching, my textile work is about stitch, work together. And so, I did a lot of exploration in that, trying different things. I've ended up with a body of work that I call Skins, that I'm going to be exhibiting in June with a poet friend of mine. And my skins were inspired by her poetry. We've been wanting to collaborate for years. And my skins were inspired by her poetry. So that body of work came out of it. I've gone back more to painting now than working with textiles, but I think just having the two in my mind at the same time allowed me to try some new things, because I'm passionate about both of them. And sometimes it's hard to put them together. They're very different activities. Textiles are slow, and everything takes more planning and takes a really long time to create. Expressionist, non-objective painting, it's all about getting things out from the inside without doing a lot of thinking and planning. And you might still take time doing it, but usually things are pouring out in a different kind of way than they are with textile work. So
are you, how did that come about? Did you do textiles? Tell us a little bit about your story with the textiles in the past, and how did it come to,
Yeah, I was
come to
primarily a
back to life?
textile artist. I left my other career a long time ago now, and I moved into art, and textiles was where I felt most comfortable and the most drawn at the time. I think I was still drawn to painting, but I feel quite comfortable in the textile world. You know, I started knitting when I was 5, and I started stitching when I was 6, and just kind of that family where you always had something in your hands and you were always making something involving textiles. So I felt comfortable in that world. And so until about 10 years ago, that was really what I was doing. I did a lot of different kinds of textile art, but it was primarily based. I was a weaver for a while, and then it became primarily based in contemporary embroidery. And I burned out. I had a couple of big shows one year. I was exhausted. I took a break, and just I thought I would go right back to it, but I didn't. I wanted to paint. There's something in me that really wanted to paint, and I think I'd been holding it inside for a long time when I worked on the textiles that were laborious and took a long time, even though I loved, pardon me, I loved doing them. So that has always been in me. And painting is much more relatively new, especially abstract painting is relative. It's been a few years now, but it still feels relatively new and um, uncertain.
It's so funny that you say that, because when I've known you now for many years, but when I see your work, um, I don't see it as a newer artist. I see all your stories and all your history behind it, and you've been very disciplined with your work. And I think that that is a key to to get to the next level. So we're always trying to climb the ladder, and you can climb it very slow or very fast. That's not even like, it's not a competition. It's how you feel about yourself. But by showing up every day, and by, I know that you love walking in nature, and you bring a long piece of paper, and you like to really record your walks. And so I think that all of that to you is showing up and really being truthful to what you want to do now. And I think that is coming through beautifully. And, I wouldn't say like, um, I think that you have a solid background, and it's just coming all together about now.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, art has been my life for 30 years. Maybe, yeah, 30 years. And I think it's your 24-hour a day life if
Yes.
you're passionate about it. You're not always doing it, but you're always thinking about it. So if you're not in the studio doing it, you're thinking about it, or you go to bed at night and you're thinking about it. And it doesn't have to be deep, serious thoughts. It can be just even little thoughts and more surface thoughts, and sometimes they're deep, meaningful thoughts. So I think that if you're passionate about something, and it doesn't have to be art, you're thinking about it a lot. My kid, I'm older, my kids are grown, and I don't have grandchildren, and I live alone, so I don't have a lot of I don't have
Distractions.
a lot of social life. I don't have a lot of responsibilities outside of, my small family. And um, so I think that and also I think that early on I realized, especially when my kids were younger, that the only way I was going to get to my studio and get the work done was if I took myself seriously as an artist. And that isn't easy to do, because it's pretty hard, even in the beginning, to say you're an artist and then to actually feel like you're a serious artist. But that was the only way that I was going to do the work and get it done. So I'm in my studio almost every day, pretty
So
much.
now that, I mean, and you're a working artist,
Yeah,
professionally, been doing this for many years
yeah,
now. And you're still taking classes, you're
yeah,
still, putting yourself out there, which I always encourage,
yeah,
young artists to always keep learning. Always, there's never a time where I personally would say I'm done learning. The minute that I would say that, I would think that I would be very mediocre, and I would never want to stay mediocre. I would always want to learn and put myself out there. And I think that, you've been doing this program with Stephen the whole year. And I think that it has helped you, maybe even bringing the textile back into your paintings.
For sure.
And right?
Yeah, it's helped me grow over the last year. It's helped to keep me in the studio because I think it's been a hard year for artists to be in the studio for so many reasons. And it's helped me to want to be in the studio and not to I'm not exhibiting much right now. I'm not selling much right now. And somehow, although we don't think that's the primary reason for painting, it can become discouraging when the work builds up in your studio and doesn't go anywhere. But I think that this last year has really helped me with that. It's really helped me realize that I've always known it wasn't about that. And in my heart of hearts, I've always felt it wasn't about that, but it's hard to feel like you're not wasting your time or wasting your money and stuff for everybody, I think. So I think that having that community of support and learning can help you get over those doubts, those feelings that, who do I think I am kind of feelings that we sometimes have as artists.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think just being in that group and learning new things and talking about the work I'm excited to go back into the studio. I can hardly wait after those classes every week. So it's really wonderful.
Oh, that's amazing. And Jane, are you still in your home? Your studio is in your home, right? So it's very easy for you to get there. So that has not affected your daily painting?
No, I moved about a year before the pandemic and specifically found a home that had a double garage in the backyard that is my studio. So I always wanted a studio. I always worked at home and I've always wanted a studio that wasn't in my home. So yeah, I could not be luckier. I'm really one of the very fortunate people. And, I'm in an age group where I'm not having to look for work and I'm not having to, worry about paying rent and things like that. So yeah, I'm extremely fortunate.
Yeah. And you have a very specific language in the non-objective world that you live in, and I kind of do as well. And and you'll show us around in a few minutes what we're saying. But Jane has this vocabulary that she uses that it's in her brain, and that's what maybe keeps her up at night. All this, symbols and words and things that happen that then you transfer that into your painting. And can you tell us a little bit about how that has transformed your painting and your way of approaching canvas?
I don't think I can because I don't know where it comes from. It's just what comes out through my hands. Like all of us, we have marks that our hands make and our body makes, and we don't really know where they come from, but they keep coming again and again. And at some point you start to recognize that those marks keep coming back. And one of the things I've done in the last year. Oops, is that
Oh my
you?
goodness. Sorry about that. Okay. Woo! Somebody will get that, hopefully.
One of the things that I've looked at, because often I want my work to look like other people's work. I'll look at an artist, I want my work to look like their work. And of course, I can't do that. I couldn't make it happen. So what I've done, one of the things I've done a lot in the last year is look at other people's work and write down what I like about it. Some work that really attracts me. What is it that really attracts me in this work? And then look at my work with the same eye and say, what really attracts me in this work? And I found those two are very different. for one thing. So trying to be like somebody else isn't going to be you at all. And I've also found it's also helped me sort of pin down what's important in my work, what's important to me in my work. And I realized that mark making is vitally important. And I want my marks to show. I don't want to bury them all the time. I want them to show. So that language you talk about is just what comes out of me. I do it often with my left hand, more so now that I'm having some arthritis problems. And it just, I don't think about it. You know, it's automatic. And
Yeah.
I love that about it, because you don't, it's so interesting to me what comes out of our bodies that we're not aware of when we're not thinking, when we're not controlling everything. What naturally comes out when we move. And I think
Do you think of design and value at all, or is it an automatic painting, and then you know, the intellectual part of the brain comes in and starts to?
Yeah, I think at some point you stop and think about design and value. More so if a painting isn't working. If the painting's working, I don't think about that at all.
Okay.
I don't think, well, why is it working? Well, I shouldn't say that. Sometimes I do, because I want to figure it out. But if a painting isn't working, then I'll sit back and think about those things a little bit, which is really helpful. It doesn't necessarily solve the painting for me, but it's a really helpful process to go through. And then usually I'll put it away, come back to it later. And I think that having had that thought process while I wasn't painting then allows me to go back into the painting without thinking and without trying to fix it, because I can't, the more you try to fix it, the worse it gets. So I think having those thoughts and that knowledge is really helpful, but I don't think it's helpful during the painting process itself.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, now you're going to take us on a little tour of your studio and the pieces that you're working on.
So now I have to figure out how to flip my
There's like, yeah, there's little arrows. I think they're on the top somewhere. Like one arrow pointing one way and the other one the other way. So like two arrows like that.
I thought I'd be able to do this.
I'm pretty sure I have them in the middle of my screen. Okay, perfect.
Okay,
great, awesome.
So talking about marks.
Yes.
So this is sometimes I worked a lot in black and white in the last year, and I worked a lot on paper. So I managed to. I was thinking about empty space, and I end up with a lot of stuff in my paintings. So I was thinking about empty space, and there's still a lot of stuff in this piece, but I feel like I was able to leave a lot of white paper, which is not always easy for me.
Yes, there's quiet conversation, but there's definitely loud conversation happening here.
Yeah, and it's really about drawing this piece. So I did a lot of drawing this year too. So this piece is one of the textile pieces I was talking about, one of my skins.
Yes. And
I'll go up close in a minute. So what I ended up doing, I did a lot of different things, but what really attracted me was using recycled domestic cloth. So old sheets, old curtains, old clothing, and so on, and using paint on it and then stitching it. And so these pieces came out of t-shirt rags that I used. My family gives me old t-shirts to tear up and use for rags in my studio. And so I had actually over the years, like a lot of years ago, saved some of these t-shirts and the t-shirt rags, because I liked the way that, wiping paint off brushes and stuff made the scraps of fabric look. And so I wanted to do something with them. So just going a little bit closer here.
Yeah.
So some of them I put more paint on.
Okay.
And then I started stitching them densely together.
Wow, look at that.
And I liked the fact that you could see the original clothing. You could see the shape of a body. That's why I call them skins. It's because they
Yeah,
have this
I was
really
just gonna
nice
say that. I'm
texture.
like, it looks like a body. It
Yeah,
almost looks like a, with the shape of the yeah, of a woman maybe even.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
so all of them, I think there's about 12 to 15 pieces in all, and they all look like animal pelts or human bodies in some respect. And they're all pieces that have been worn until they're worn out and then further altered and stitched by me in the studio. So I feel I feel quite sentimental about them. I feel quite tender towards them because
Yes.
they
They
feel
have
like
so
they
much history and
yeah,
story.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Eventually, I moved out of that because it's hard to sit at the sewing machine for that many hours at a time. And I, I, I did a body of work for this show, and then I went back and did some other things. So
Okay.
the other thing I tried this year was a friend, you know her, Pam Coe, had given me a jar of graphite powder years ago, and I never used it. When I was doing oil and cold wax, she'd given me this jar to play with, and I never used it for anything. And I was having a hard time. I think I was having a hard time in the fall with everything going on and on and on. And yeah, like, we have our
Yes.
ups and downs. It's fine
Yes.
for a while and then it's not fine. And
Yes.
so I was feeling really frustrated, and I took a big piece of paper outside with my graphite powder, and I put on a mask and gloves, and I just poured it on the paper and started rubbing it in. And I got really excited about how the graphite powder in my hands made these marks on the paper. So I did that for a while, and then I decided, well, what other dry pigments could I use? So I took some of my soft pastels and I started grading them onto the paper and rubbing them around, and then putting matte medium over and other marks. So that's what this is. This is
Can you go closer
yeah.
so we can see more of the detail on that?
So I've drawn, there's drawing here, and then
Yeah.
there's, so the orange and the indigo colors would be pastels. And there's a bit of purple in there that I graded onto the paper. So to try and powderize them a bit with a really, like with a nutmeg grater that I
I
never
love
used
the
for nutmeg.
lines what are the lines that I can see? What is
So
that?
the lines, the drawing lines are, I think they're probably soft pastel or something
Are
like
they?
that. There might be
Okay.
those fat stabilo markers too. So
Okay.
just drawing material. And
Yeah.
then after I put the pigment on, I pour on some matte medium and
To seal it.
move it
Yeah.
around. And move it around. So you'll see some like lines like this
Yes. Yes.
and this. That would be the edge from the scraper that I use to spread around the matte medium.
Oh, I love that.
So yeah, I had so much fun with that, and then the weather changed and it started raining, and I couldn't go outside, and I didn't want to do it in my studio because I don't want powdery pigments flying around in my
No
studio.
kidding. I have a jar. You inspire me. I should use it.
Yeah.
I've never really used it.
No, I didn't know what to do. I kind of didn't know what to do with it, and a big piece of paper is better, and then you can just get both hands in there, and it feels really nice too. It's very soothing and very energetic to get a lot of frustration out.
And get really down and dirty.
Yeah, yeah. And then I've still been painting as well, and my latest thing is I'm trying to paint in oils. And I have never painted in oils. I used oil and cold wax a few years ago.
Yes.
Quite a bit for about a year, and then I was selling my house and I couldn't do it in the house anymore, so I stopped. And I've always wanted to try really painting in oils. So the last month, month and a half, I've been painting in oils. So
And
it's a
what do
whole
you
new world.
feel?
It's a love-hate relationship at the moment.
Okay.
I'm so used to acrylics and the quick drying and just even the consistency of acrylics is so different. So I don't know if I'll stick with it I'll stick with it for a while because I really want to get to the point where I understand it a little bit better. But
Hmm.
we'll see. It's good and
Wow.
bad. Yeah, it's very different for me because
Very different.
I paint
Yeah.
fast and cover up quickly, and so it's teaching me patience. That's not a bad thing.
That's not a
Yeah,
bad thing. I
yeah.
agree.
So that's
Yeah.
kind of been my year. There's just stuff all over my studio. Do have a great studio, so there's just stuff hanging everywhere, and
Oh, please take us around. We love
yeah.
to see everything.
Okay, so you come in. I'm sharing it with my son right now, who's a woodworker. So he's kind of cut me in half here, but that's temporary. So, what I did was I put acoustic tiles on my back wall so I can pin things up. So
Oh,
I
that's
have a
great.
whole wall,
Wow.
and I bought industrial shelving that my son put together for me for storage, and lots of tables. I need lots of tables.
Yeah.
And then I built a wall, or my son built a wall that was Steve Imony's design that's actually double-sided, so I can flip this around and use the other side as well.
And it's on wheels.
And it's on wheels. And my tables are all on wheels too, because I can never figure out where I want them. And you know, you have to keep reorganizing your studio.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
I'm really very lucky. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
fabulous.
It's a
Can
nice
you
space.
show us a little bit of that wall and what you have up there? And
Sure.
are there just like
They're just sort of hanging there. They're all kind of overlapping. The row across the top, sorry, the lights are going to get in the way here. This
that's
row
okay.
across the top,
Yes.
get around the light.
Yes.
These are
Wow.
my first pieces on paper. When I was working in oil, I decided to work on paper to start with. And I started with small paper, but of course that only lasted a few days. And then I had to go bigger. This piece is one of the experimental pieces that I did when I was working in the stitch. So I did some painting on torn paper and then stitched it together. And that's
And what
pretty
did
fun.
you think? Did you like that? Did you
Yeah, I
like
did
the
like that.
stitching on
Actually,
paper?
paper is quite satisfying to stitch. You can't stitch it too much, but it's quite satisfying actually to stitch. And
Yeah,
then
I bet it is.
yeah. And then this little piece is the one that I'd like to donate for sale.
Yay! So you guys, you know that we work as a community of artists, and Jane has been so generous. This is her second donation. Remember, 100% of the proceeds go to Feeding America. We're asking $200 for this small piece that it is gorgeous, fabulous from our dear Jane. So if you want to help people today, please DM me or Jane for details. Mostly DM me and I will take care of you. And this gorgeous, gorgeous painting from Jane can be yours for $200. And remember that 100% of the proceeds will go to Feeding America. And we've helped so many people, and we need to continue this incredible, important journey that we started together. And I really couldn't do it without my army of artists and someone as generous as Jane, who's come back to celebrate this incredible project. So please consider buying this piece from Jane, and just DM me or Jane, as I said, and we'll take care of you. And Jane, do you want to switch your camera around?
Sure.
And I'm going to turn back comments. So if you have any questions, this will be the time to ask Jane any questions. Jane, so what is the biggest difference that you found using oils now compared to acrylics, other than the patience on drying time? Other than that, what do you think?
The consistency is so different. You think they're going to be the same, and it's so different. I think what I'm loving most about oils is the way it comes off your brush. And I wouldn't have thought that would be so different, but the feeling when it comes off the brush for me is very different. My movements are slower because it's oil and it's taking a while to move. It keeps moving longer than acrylics do, but it takes longer to move, if that makes sense
Yeah.
to anybody but me.
Yeah.
So
So
I wanted to, when I started painting in oils, I thought, okay, the only thing that can change here is my medium. Just paint the way you usually paint, but change the medium. And to some extent that worked, except that my movements have to be slower with oil,
yeah.
at least oil the way that I'm working with it. I think I'm probably breaking every oil painting rule in the book. First, because I
That's
don't
okay though.
understand it,
That's the
but
only way to learn.
if they, the paint may be sliding off my canvases in a few years, but it's
Yeah.
not my primary worry at the moment.
Yes.
So yeah,
So
I'm just
someone
trying
is
a bunch of
asking,
different things.
what do you use on the fabric? I'm assuming that the question is what kind of paint.
I just
Are you,
used acrylic paint. When I was working in textiles in the past, I did a lot of textile dyeing, and I know how to dye textiles, but in this case, I was just throwing paint on. And I'd water down the paint, or I'd splash the paint on. I wasn't really too intentional about where I put the paint or what color paint I was using, because I wanted them to feel like the rags that some of them started out as. Some of them were actually rags that I used in my studio, and you just wipe paint off with them, or you rub a canvas with them, and you don't really think about what color paint's going on your rag, or what it's going to look like. So I wanted to apply paint in that same way, very arbitrarily. And
so what do you use to finish your skins so they are, protected with the sun, or can you finish them? No.
I'm not, yeah, well, I think if you want it, you could frame them. And some of them are smaller, and yeah, you definitely could float them in a shadow box frame and protect them from UV with UV glass. But because they're recycled fabric that has led at least 3 lives, that's not my primary concern. I think that if they start to disintegrate or fade or break down, that's a new life. That's just part of the cycle that these textiles are going through. I put some textiles in the compost to see, old textiles in the compost, and then use them to stitch on, or use them to apply as collage, because they're natural fibers. The thread is a natural fiber, and breaking down and going back into the earth is probably what they're meant to do.
So, Jane, who do you think is your biggest inspiration? I know there's probably a lot. There's
No,
probably a lot, but
I would say Steve Imony is my biggest inspiration, because I couldn't
oh,
name a
Steve
single.
would be so proud to hear you say that.
He's mentored me and inspired me for years. He has a very very distinctive way of talking about painting and talking to artists, and his depth and breadth of knowledge is just astonishing to me. So I couldn't name a single artist that's my biggest inspiration. There's just so many, and some of them are long dead, and some of them are alive and painting today. I go on Instagram, and I just, I follow people and marvel at what they're doing.
Yeah, I agree.
And you inspire me. You inspire me with what you're doing, the way that your generosity. Well, your painting too, but your generosity here.
Thank you, Jane. I think that, it's so important. And why I started this whole project was because I felt like there were so many people at home paralyzed, not knowing how to move, which way to go. And I thought, artists have been working by themselves for a long time. And they are really cool people that are willing to share their inspiration, their process, the materials that they use. And I think we opened this door of, come on in and see what we do and how we do it. And if we can answer any questions, we will. And I think that was lost in translation for many years, where they thought, you're an artist, I can't ask because I know you're not going to share because I don't want you to paint like me. And listen, if you are inspired by my paintings and you want to paint by me, please go ahead, do it.
Okay.
We won't ever look the same because we don't have the same arm.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're each one of us have a very unique story as where we come from. And so you can't, you know, you can't reproduce that. And so I think that people are now opening to the idea that we're all so open to share everything that we have.
Yeah, it's true. And I think also as artists, we want to share. That helps in our process. I'm not a teacher. I don't teach art. So for me, giving away what I know, I mean, what little I know for free is just, or inspiring one person every day. To me, that's the greatest gift of all. That to me, because we do work in isolation, and we do that because it's part of our work and part of how we work. But we want to be part of a community, and we want to be part of an artist community, but we want to be part of a bigger community where we can share any little tidbits that we have. And
100%. And I think that is, you know, again, I think that because we have this safety net, we can throw ourselves and do things that, you know, I never thought that I would be interviewing people from all over the world and just reaching out. And people have asked me, well, how are you doing it? I'm like, I'm just asking.
yeah.
I mean, the worst thing they can say is no, you know, I don't want to be a part of it. That's fine. That's okay. But most artists do want to feel that they are part of something bigger than themselves.
Yes.
And together we are making a difference, and we are making a dent. And that feels really, really good, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah. So, Jane, any tips for people at home now? Have you learned anything that you want to share with us?
I don't know that I have any great insights or knowledge. I think that people have already learned that making things with your hands, doing things with your hands has the importance of doing things with your hands has become so relevant now, even for people that never thought they could do that or never did that. I mean, when you look at the explosion in at-home gardening and home repairs and construction and online cooking classes and bread making and online art classes and stuff now, I think it's wonderful. I think that people are realizing that those things are so important in their lives. Creativity, and not just painting, but creativity in general, and doing things with your hands is really a massive part of getting us through this. I think I've always known that, but I think that seeing other people doing that as well has been really inspiring to me.
Yeah, and just keep on going and keep inspiring and keep, you know, every day learning something new and sharing that feels really, really fantastic.
Yeah. And it's healing. It's healing, and we all need healing. I mean, there's a lot of things we can do to be kind to ourselves and our families right now as part of that healing process. And I think that working with our hands making something with your hands is vital. Yeah. And
so Jane, can you bring us back the painting that you're going to be donating so we can see it? Or however it works. There we go. Yay. So
it's 5 by 5 inches, and it's framed to 10 by 10 inches.
And can you tell us a little bit about this painting?
Yes, this is oil on paper. It's actually oil and cold wax on paper, but it's oil on paper. And it was part of a series I called Les Petits a couple of years ago. I did about 25 of these little pieces and framed them all themselves. So they're largely gone now, but they were sold in little groupings so that one can hang by itself, but you could hang them in groups of 2 or 3 or 5 or something as well. So it was interesting because I don't work small that often. And for me, working this small, I started them, I would start them on one big sheet of paper together, and then I would separate them out and work on them individually. Um, so for me, working this small was interesting. I learned a lot. I mean, I think anytime you change scale and do multiples, you learn something from each and every one of them.
Yes, I 100% agree with that. And it's and now you can flip the camera again, so we can see your face again. But it's important. I when I interviewed Donna Dion, she's also a dear friend of mine. We talked about the framing that you have and how you can frame certain parts of a painting, and find that, and find what works and what doesn't work.
Yes, yes.
And that has been something that I've been using personally a lot,
Good.
framing my own work. And it just gives me that perspective that
Yeah,
I'm losing in the whole thing when I feel a little
yeah,
lost in my painting.
yeah,
As
yeah.
soon as as I crop, and I wish I had something to show you here with, but as soon as if I kind of go like that, right,
Yeah.
and I start looking and framing parts of the piece that is working for me, it's very helpful to do that. And sometimes it's okay. You can cut it out and say,
You,
this is what works, and the rest doesn't. But this I love,
yeah,
right?
you can do that, but you could also just crop a picture of that corner of the painting, or put a mat over
Yeah,
top of it so that
yeah.
it's isolated, and then write down why you like that little part of the painting. Like, write down why that works for you, and that can help you then use those ideas on the whole painting. You don't have to cut it out. You could just look at it in isolation and think, well, this part's really working now. Why is this part really working? And if you can isolate it, maybe you can figure out why that part's really working and apply it to a larger piece or the whole piece.
Oh, I think we just
There's a
sold
lot
your
to be learned here.
painting to
What's that?
Robin Olson. Robin,
Oh, hi,
thank
Robin.
you. Oh my God, I love Robin. I interviewed her last week, and I am such a fan of her work. And
Me too. Me too.
she
Big fan of her work. Yeah.
big fan of her work, and she wants your painting. So thank you
Oh,
so
Robin,
so
really?
much.
Oh, thank you, Robin. Oh, I'm really
Yes.
very honored and pleased. That's great. Yeah.
I know. I love Robin, and
Yeah.
her process and inspiration. And again,
Yeah.
just opening her studio doors to all of us. And if you didn't catch that interview, it's on my YouTube channel, and just go look for it. Longtime big fan of Jane's art. She's so versatile, and her art is fresh and free and fabulous. Oh, that's what a compliment. Really,
Yeah. That's
truthfully.
so
Our
cool.
friend Kat Stella joined, and also
Yes.
she's such a big fan. And
I miss
Jane
you,
just
Kat.
said, huh?
I miss you, Kat.
I know, she's a busy girl too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's just been wonderful to have our community support us, and but also we inspiring people at home. And like I said, I am just so happy that I made the full year with Tap Into Your Creativity, and I'm just so excited.
Boy,
And
we didn't think it would be a full year though when you started like a year ago. We didn't expect to be,
no.
in this position a year later, but
Yes. So we miss you, Annette. And Kat just said, I miss you too, Jane. So
oh,
there you go. We all miss each other. We all need
I know.
an artist residency in person real soon. That's what
I
we
hope
all
so.
need.
I hope
I
so.
really do hope so.
Yeah.
And I will keep going as much as I can. I love what I do. I love that we're helping people. I love my community of artists. I couldn't do it without you. And I just want to thank you again, Jane, for your generosity and for being here celebrating this huge accomplishment today with me.
Likewise. Congratulations, Sandra. And you're doing a wonderful thing.
Well, I'm just reading your friends. Jane Cohen. Jane is the most generous. Monica Perez, thank you for being here. Love Jane's work. Monica, I still have to get back to you on coming into tap into your creativity.
Okay.
So DM me, Monica, when you can. And happy Easter, everyone. I hope you
Yes.
have an amazing weekend. Thank you, Connie. Thank you, everyone that is here today. And oh, thank you so much. Jane, you've been incredible, always an inspiration to me and to everyone. I
Thanks.
love you as a friend, and I admire your work so, so much.
Me too. Thank you. You make it easy.
Thanks, Jane.
Okay,
I'm
bye.
sending you a big kiss and happy Easter, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.